So before I get started, I do want to give you a little bit of background of myself so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from in my perspective. I did start teaching 20 plus years ago as an Air Force officer. And I tend to make the joke, the federal government said, you will teach. And I, of course, smiled and said, I'd be happy to. But it turned out to be a great experience, first experience teaching. I left the Air Force and became a high school teacher in Texas, where I grew up. And from there, I decided I wanted to help prepare teachers. So I went to the University of Texas at Austin and got my PhD in educational psychology with my expertise in learning, cognition, and instruction. And essentially what that means is I'm an expert in how we learn. And as teachers, how do we help others learn? So as director of this program, definitely a good fit. My other role on campus is then I teach future secondary educators, middle school and high school teachers. I have been at UNC since 2010. I was hired specifically to develop this program. And so I have written the curriculum. I've written the textbook that supports the program. I do all of the research and assessment to improve the program. And then I do all the hiring and training of our instructors and our peer mentors. So I do quite a bit with this program. So before we get into the details of this program, I wanted to share a little bit on why UNC, as well as 95% of the institutions across the country, have programs like this to help their students. When I was teaching at Skyline High School, I was teaching a college level course at Skyline High School. And these students who enrolled in this course, these were your strong students. They wanted to earn the college credit. They'd been, making A's. They were AP students, very strong. And we got to the first exam and a good majority of them did C's or worse. And for some of them, this was a shock. They never failed a test before. What's going on here, Dr. Vaughn? I'm scared. What's happening to me? And ultimately what caught them by surprise was the volume of the material and the pace of the material. And they were trying to use their same skills that they had used before to be successful in the same way. And it didn't work for them. And so I helped them at that time to transition those skills and to help to improve. And so the big point here, ultimately, why do freshman students, why is it a challenge? And it's not just here at UNC, this is nationwide, is a challenge, is that there are a lot of high school students, especially with the opportunities now, have learned college level material, whether that's AP, baccalaureates, dual enrollment, even the community colleges, things like that. But typically they're learning it in a high school way. And what I mean is that the teachers are creating those learning experiences for the students in the classroom. And now when they come to UNC, they're having to do those things for themselves. So every entering UNC freshman, this is a brand new experience as they're walking in. So UNC recognizes this, understands that there's a need to transition skills. And so we have this program to support them. So I want to get into some specifics about it. First thing to know is that it is an academic course. It's a 3-credit, what I like to say, research-based academic course. And our approach and our philosophy is that we want to ensure that students can do the college level academic tasks, but we're going to provide lots of support. And all of my instructors and peer mentors get a significant amount of training, not only to be able to present and teach the material, but then to support students. I included this picture because, last fall with COVID, we were still face-to-face. It was still challenging, but we did it and we still had managed to have some fun. So this was Halloween. The instructor is actually the one that you see as the Mandalorian, which I absolutely love that she did that. I thought that was funny. As I said, it's an academic course, so they're going to learn to read research articles, they'll write papers. We do complete a research project, they'll take exams, just like any other college level course. And the theories that we go through that supports this is goals, motivation theory, memory, how do our brains work, essentially coming from my discipline, educational psychology, which sets the foundation. The other piece of it, though, is it is a practical skills course. Nationwide, students will tell you one of the biggest things that they're nervous about is the time management. They're going to be responsible for that now on their own. And so we give them some very practical strategies to figure out what works for them and how to adapt that. We also do a career and major education plan. Make sure that if they did make a choice, that they feel confident about it and it's based on real information. We have them go out and research, starting pay, education requirements, job growth, all those types of things. So make sure they made the right choice. If they're undeclared, definitely helps them explore some different options around that, what their interests might be. We also do some things around professional communication and even advocating for themselves. Now, as grown-ups, and most of us would recognize that we shouldn't send emails to a professor that looks like a text message. But we do get those. And, for me and my work with freshman students, I see it, I understand it, but there are some professors who will get that and not respond and not be too happy about it. So we want to make sure they understand the professional communication, but then if they're not getting the response, how do they advocate for themselves? How do they get the information that they need? So that's also another piece of what we do. I did want to put this out there to let you know, we do have some students who are required. So if you see this on your student schedule, it may be for this reason. Our TRIO students or our Center for Human Enrichment, our CHASE students are required, our GOAL students, and then undeclared students, our psychology students, our seeking business majors, and then our sports coaching majors. So those are all required to take it. But we do have large populations because these programs like NHS, the pre-nursing, they recognize the benefits of how this helps them. And so we have a large proportion of students who are the pre-nursing majors, as well as the business majors. Our honors students, they have the choice of taking this or another, I believe it's a 1 credit within the honors department. We're actually transitioning to where we're going to get to a place where all honor students would start here with this class, but we're not quite there yet. And then in the end, as part of this presentation to share with you is I strongly believe that this gives our students, our entering students, the strongest possible start. And so for those who really want to transition and move to that next level, definitely appropriate. This is one of the things I wanted to share with you along those lines is we do have a research project. The project itself, it's not a very long project. We're more interested in the process and we break it down and walk them through, give them lots of feedback, verbal, written feedback. And it culminates then in our research night. And even with the pandemic, as I've got some examples here, this last fall, we still had our research night. It was a smaller scale because of the constraints, but we still had our students present their research. This is an exciting time because usually students start the semester totally scared, terrified. I got to write this research paper. I'm going to be presenting my research to the community because we invite the university, families, friends, all those people to come. And so at first it's very intimidating. But by the time we walk them through the process and they get to this point, they're just very excited to share their work. They're very knowledgeable about their work because they've been working on it all semester. And it really, in my mind, gives the message that you belong here and you have something of value to share with us. And so it is a big event. I'm very excited that we should be able to be back to our larger event, and this will happen in the week of November 15th. So I encourage y'all to come and support your student. I wanted to share this one. This was from the year before, and UNC does a research day in the spring. And so I then encourage our students who did this work then to submit it and present to the university in the spring. And I've shared this one because both these young ladies earned recognition and awards for their work on UNC's Spring Research Day. The young lady on the right is, well, actually both of these, no, on the right, she was a sophomore. and she won first place. And then the young lady on the left was part of our CHA program, and she was a second semester freshman and also won first place on this UNC Research Day. So really great work. So a couple other things to know and a little bit on how this might be a little bit different than some of the other courses. I view this as an application course. So students will see that they're going to have homework that's more frequent. Typical introductory freshman course at the college level. Students will come in, professors will lecture, they will take notes. 5 weeks in, 6 weeks in, they might take their first test. And that's pretty much how that can be organized. In this case, they're going to have things first week, second week. Again, more frequent, definitely within the 3 credit workload expectation, but it's going to look a little bit different. And our intent here is we're wanting them to actually do these things, to apply these things, to try these things. And so we do ask them to, we have some additional requirements there. I also like to think of it as a training course. Now, we definitely know what it takes for students to be successful and to earn their degrees. It's not a mystery. And so we put some policies in place in class to set up those habits, to start getting accountable. When we were doing these in person, I used to talk to students and go, how many of you already heard need to go to class? And they're all raising their hands. And I can tell you that there is significant research that I share with students that shows one of the single biggest factors of positively impacting GPA in that first semester is just showing up. And so really encouraging them to do that. So we do have attendance policies that are tied to grades to help motivate them to get to class. We also, again, talk a lot about time management and planning and preparation. So to make sure that they turn their work in on time. I have 3 children. My oldest finished college, thankfully, has got a nice job, which is all really great. But I remember from high school experience, she'd be the only one that would turn in their work on time. And the teachers would make it okay for everybody else. Yeah, turn it in, whatever. And it doesn't help them when they get to this point. It really becomes important that they turn their work in on time. Some professors will take some late work, deduct some points, to be in their syllabus, but I'm trying to prepare them for those even stricter standards that they might meet or expect in their time here. Preparing ahead of time for class, reading ahead of time. There is reasons for students to do that, why it's important. We share that. So we'll do reading quizzes, things like that to help hold them accountable for it. I say that, but the other piece of this is that transition course. And it comes back to my first point that students have not done this before. It is brand new for them. And I can tell you that my instructors, this is a very competitive position. So it's through a selective process, interview and then selection. And they're all qualified in terms of the material, but the reason I select them is because of their desire to serve students and serve students at this point in time in their educational journey. And the biggest thing here is that they are now this immediate point of contact if students need help with anything. And it doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about our summer program too. So it's an even earlier immediate point of contact, but ultimately students can reach out to them. They're going to get additional reminders and expectations and explanations. And what I mean by that, a lot of times professors will hand out syllabi first day and never refer to it again. And students are expected to pay attention to those due dates, what's coming up and things like that. A lot of times professors too will assign a 10-page research paper. And this can happen even that first semester, certainly the second semester. And they will just assume students understand or know how to do these things. We make no assumptions, and we do, in this case, do a little hand holding in terms of those reminders, letting them know what's coming up. I think this fall, this is going to become even more important as I recognize, as we all do, that this last year and a half for our high school students was not their typical high school experience, right? And for some, there was a lot of challenges there. I have another high school student, and her teacher left in the middle of the semester and they threw her some online stuff to complete on her own, biology, which made me a little nervous. But that's probably a common experience for a lot of students. And so I think they're going to need the support. This one-on-one check-ins, as a parent, I think this is also an important piece. If a student doesn't show to class, okay, but then a student doesn't show to class again, our instructors are going to reach out. They're not going to wait to see what happens. They're going to reach out. Are you doing okay? Is everything fine? Many times, freshmen do not understand that there are resources here on campus. So let's say something happened at home and a student needs to go home and support their family for whatever reason. There are resources here on campus to support them if they need to do that. We would hate for a student's entire semester to be trashed because they had to go home, or maybe they got sick, or whatever the case might be. So these one-on-one check-ins, my instructors are paying attention. This quote came from a student in a course evaluation and this last semester, and I thought it really spoke to what I see all the time. I read all of the course evals, and I love this. Genuinely one of the most caring human beings I have ever met. And of course, I know who this instructor is, and I would agree. She's absolutely wonderful. But then she'll also say that she's looking at best intentions, and she's trying to make it as effective as possible. Now, my instructors are able to do a lot of these things because of the way it is structured. The course is small, usually 25 to 30 students. The instructors are going to work to know their names. And actually, they'll know a lot of the names when I share what we do in the summer, even before that first week. It's also, again, not lecture-based. I'm a learning expert. We learn more by doing. And so it is very interactive, student-centered, lots of activities, discussion, and things like that. This other quote also came from this last fall. And I love the idea of it being a safe environment and encourage students to be their best selves. And so recognizing that instructors are advocating for them and challenging them to do well. I say the inclusive and safe environment because one of the things I love about our campus is we do have a lot of diversity in a lot of different ways. Whether you're talking about racial diversity, political diversity, we have a lot of diversity on our campus. And this is pretty normal where students share in this environment, in this community. They feel like they can be themselves and they feel like it's a safe place to be. And so I really appreciate the work that my instructors have been able to do for students. Oops. Another part of our program that's pretty exciting is our peer mentoring program. And we call this class leaders. And so our class leaders, they were freshman students last fall, and they were nominated, and they also went through this competitive process and were selected to be this additional support for students. So they attend twice a week in class so they can share about the academics, give them their own examples, how did they adapt things. But then they also do things outside of campus and to help students get engaged and get connected. You know, one of the things, and of course we couldn't do this last fall, we did the best we could, but you know, this fall I can see it being normal to previous years where our class leaders would plan anywhere from 15 to 20 different events outside of class, whether it's going to athletic events, study sessions, things like that. Excuse me. And one of the nice things too is, you know, if you think about a freshman, and freshmen share this with us, we try to do something in that first couple weeks. And so a lot of times they will organize going to the football game together. And now for a freshman student brand new on campus, sometimes it's still a little scary, even though it's right there, you can walk, it's free. Sometimes students still hesitate to participate in those things. They know their class leader is going to be there. They know some of their peers are there. We're going to meet here. They can all go together and enjoy the game. And they right away have opportunities to meet other students. And students have shared with me in past years that this was the first time that got them out of their dorms and got them doing things. So we do things throughout the entire semester to support them. I also share this too, because for some students, thinking about this as a scholarship opportunity for later on in their second year is also another possibility. Okay. Here's just some pictures. Again, this was more previous years where we got to do some of these things. Our class leaders last fall got very creative and did some in-person things and did some online things. But I'm eager to get back to some of this where we have all these students getting together. And here's some more pictures. This one, again, was Halloween, and that class had to do online, but they still got into things and tried to make the best of it. I did want to show this other picture in the classroom too, because a lot of times when we think about going to college and we're going to be in a room with 100 people in this big lecture hall, that's not what this is. And it's usually, again, a small environment, probably will feel a little bit more closer of what they could have expected in their high school classrooms before when they were in person, right? So our summer program, I would like to take a moment and talk about this. So this is our second year. We tried it the first time last year, and big piece of that was knowing that we were having online orientations. They were online in their end of their high school year, just trying to build some more support and connections for them. So that's why we started it. But that was successful, and so we wanted to continue it. So we did do some assessment. We interviewed some students, did some surveys to find out what was working. And so this year, I'm very excited. We're going to do a mix of online and some in-person opportunities. In fact, each month, June, July, and August, we're going to have some sort of in-person event. I think at the end of this month, we're going to do a disc golf tournament on campus, have some food, have some prizes, some icebreakers, and things like that. We'll also do some Zoom meetings. So those that are maybe out of state will also still have an opportunity to meet instructors, class leaders, their peers, and again, just to get to know each other a little bit more. We're also on social media, on Instagram. They usually put some things on there, especially as we go across the summer, some tips and some things as they're getting closer to the semester that are very specific and can help them. But the point here too is that they're going to have an immediate point of contact. And so even if a student doesn't participate maybe in some of these events, they are still going to get instructor and a class leader will reach out to them. They'll be able to be in our Canvas shell. They're going to be able to take some tutorials to set up their accounts. But then again, they can easily email their instructor or their class leader if they have any questions. Do we have any questions at this point? How are we doing out there? Yeah, still good? Okay.
I do have one question.
Awesome.
University 101, is that a semester-long course or would this be a year-long course?
It is a semester-long course, a 16-week long course.
Will all freshmen be taking this first semester, or there's the chance that some freshmen would be having the second semester?
So we do offer a few sections in the spring for students who maybe for whatever reason were not able to take it in the fall. We do have sections in the spring, not as many, and it's not required for all freshmen. Now, a lot of people on this campus and a lot of others feel like we probably should, but it hasn't happened yet. And so again, I try to strongly recommend, especially in that first semester, if they can do it. I know even like our nursing students and our teaching students where we have very prescribed programs, we still have a large percentage of those students who ultimately still take it, still put it into their schedule because they recognize what it's going to do for them later on, which I'm going to share with y'all too, in terms of achievement data.
Wonderful.
I have a question.
Sure.
Did you say all business students have to take it?
So the seeking business students are required. But then other business students are recommended. In fact, we have specific business sections and I coordinate with their professional advisors to help support those sections as well.
So if my son signed up for business, I don't know what seeking business, is that something completely separate?
Seeking business means they did not meet the requirements to be fully accepted into the program yet. And so
Because I know he got a list of like all the classes in theory that he takes for those 4 years. Was this on there, or would this be like bumping him from 15 to 18 credits for that semester?
yeah, and I wouldn't, so in business tends to have more flexibility in their credits. I've seen their 4-year plans. I would not recommend the majority of freshmen to take 18 credits in that first semester. In fact, the recommendation is 15. For some, I would even say do 12. So I would say it would be a shift of, if let's say on the 4-year plan, it has a liberal arts core class, let's say psychology, that they're going to take. I usually recommend taking this the first semester and doing psychology in the spring, because this is where they're going to get the most impact in that fall semester with this course. And so it does go towards their university-wide electives at 120 total. So it still goes towards that graduation requirement. And business especially does have some of those electives where they're able to make choices. And this would fit into there. And Rosa definitely knows about the program, and she recommends it, and even is the one who requested the specific business sections. So that's why we've supported that and made sure we had those. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Dr. Vaughn, we also have a few questions in the chat. And so
okay.
I think these two are related, so I'm going to ask them most of the time. But is this class recommended for musical theater students? And are theater students required to take this class? Looks like the two questions.
Yeah, so PVA. Well, their PVA has a different freshman experience, and it's not required, but sometimes, well, good majority of times, PVA has some crazy schedules that first semester with the rehearsals and the number of classes that they have to take, and their practices if they're in band and those kinds of things, all those things. And so they have a very crazy schedule. And so definitely recommend this primarily for the time management piece to start them off. And a lot of times their liberal arts core classes that they have to take might be later on in their educational experience, but they're still going to have to be able to write a paper, and they're still going to have to be able to read at a higher level. So the skills, they're still going to need a lot of these other skills, but I think their biggest impact that they walk away with in that first semester is the time management piece. And so we have lots of PVA students who also take the course because they recognize that that's a need.
We have another question in the chat. So this class sounds perfect for their student. She is looking at degree plans as this class something that she can simply add to her freshman year as an elective. She's interested in graphic design / arts and not business.
Yeah, you bet. And so, and again, some of their more prescribed degree plans like nursing, like teaching and things like that. This still goes towards their total, towards graduation, but typically for a lot of your other degrees, it is where it says you have an elective. There's additional courses that you can select, and this is where kind of where that fits right into there for those. Okay. I'll keep, if we have more questions, please throw those in the chat or speak up, and I will see if more things come. Oh, looks like we got another one popped in there.
Another two, and the first one is another major related one. Is it required for exercise science students?
No, and I would say even like our exercise science, similarly to like our pre-nursing and some of those more difficult classes are going to have to take that first semester. Again, being very efficient and effective with their studying is going to have a huge impact for them.
The next question is, oh, sorry, did I interrupt you?
NHS sports coaching majors are the only ones that are required.
Generally, if you do after this presentation have more questions, you can reach out to Dr. Vaughn, and the student advisors will also know. There is a question that I think is something that you may be able to answer, Dr. Vaughn, and I can also speak to a little bit. But it says our student has a documented learning disability and had a 504 in high school for extended time to complete tests and homework assignments. How does that fit in with college course schedules, homework and tests?
So definitely, if you have not reached out to our Disability Resource Center, you want to do that to make sure that they can set up the accommodations at this level. One of the things that I appreciate about our program also supports students as they learn those processes. So they have to make requests for exams. They have to do certain things for themselves through the Disability Resource Center. And the Resource Center is pretty strict about students following those requirements. And so we definitely support them in that. And then, of course, our instructors, as well as any professors, is going to follow those accommodations. So if they need extra time, they need a note taker, whatever those might be, we go through that. So the first step, though, is make sure you're connected to our Disability Resource Center to make sure that they get that support. I put on here that one of the things that I love about our program, I shared, we have our goal students are required all the way to honor students. Goal students are our go on and learn, and they are our students who have intellectual disabilities that come to our campus for the college experience and work towards earning a certificate. And they also participate in our program. They're required to, and also do very well. So we serve a wide range of students, with the goal being taking a student where they are and helping them move to the next level, right?
And I put the link to the Disability Resources Center's website in the chat. And I know that you can make appointments with them, or you can have your student make an appointment with them over the summer, both online and in person. So
Nice.
Certainly utilize that. The next thing that was in the chat is just a comment. So yes, time management is truly essential for my kiddo. Thank you so much for offering this class.
You bet. I will keep going. Y'all keep putting the questions on there. One other point I did want to make that's similar in my mind in terms of using a specific resource. Our student athletes also have different processes that they need to make sure that they're doing. And so our instructors also help guide them. And even with their interactions with other professors and making sure that they're doing the things that they need to, if they're going to be missing class and need to advocate for themselves. So a lot of the different student situations, our instructors are there to advocate for them and support them. Did we get another question pop up?
Sorry, I was trying to finish typing something in chat. Is there anywhere where they can find a list of what majors are required to take University 101?
Yes, and it's on my an earlier slide. And so I would be happy to, Cedric, you said this is going to be recorded and available to them?
Yes, and that was the other question that was in chat. It will be available in the next couple of days as Zoom gets it processed and everything.
Okay, so yes, there was an earlier slide that lists those that were required, and then our programs that really do recommend it. So, okay. I did want to point out a couple of things here. It is not orientation. You know, students are doing that now, and you're supporting them in that. It's not remediation. So first of all, you know, congratulations on each of your students being accepted to UNC. This is a 4-year research university, and you know there's a certain level of expectation of students and when they come to our campus, and so it's not set up to be remediation. And same way, not an easy A or a blow off. We do get the full range of grades, Fs to As. Most of the time, students will fail because they choose not to show up or to do the work. But it's just like any other class, you ultimately earn the grade with the work that you put in. And we're definitely not just about a bunch of guest speakers. This was a program that was in place a long time ago, but definitely not what we're about now. I do want to talk a little bit about the results and how students do when they participate with this. So we have been recognized by the state as one of the top programs to help students persist and complete their education. And so one of the things in doing the analysis, I'm also a statistician and do a lot of research to continuously look at how we're serving students and how well it's working. And I can tell you that our results and our outcomes, which I'm about to share, have been very, very consistent over the years. So the other things I want to show on here, I'm going to start with that first term GPA, which is a huge factor, not only for students who maybe are trying to apply to programs like business or to nursing or whatever. That first semester is very important. Sometimes if students dig a hole, it can be very difficult to climb out. And it also can, determine whether or not they're going to be there the second year. And so first term GPA, the thing to notice here that is across the board, from all students, our first generation students, nursing students, and business students, it's having an impact on that first term GPA. All these differences are statistically significant, and all I'll tell you of what that means is that this did not happen by chance. It is related to their participation in our program. Looks like we have a question.
I think it was just someone saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Good academic standing. So this means that if a student earns less than a 2.0, then they are on academic probation. If they earn greater than a 2.0, they're at a good academic standing. And one thing I want to point out here too, on our undeclared students or our students who had a high school GPA of less than 3.0 and did not participate, we're talking about almost half of those students being on academic probation in that first semester. And again, that becomes difficult to climb out of that hole. And it becomes then very related to then their next year and whether they're able to stay. If a student does poorly in the first semester, typically they can stick around the second semester. But many times that is what determines, are they going to come back that fall? And so in the end, we want to support them as much as possible when they first enter. This is the one I like. This is the one what it's all about, and our graduation rates. And I did put first generation students around there in our program. Usually about 50% of our program are first generation students. I was a first generation student. A lot of our instructors are as well. And so they can really understand and relate to what that's like and what that experience is. But in the end, we're talking almost 20% differences in graduation rates. And I mean, that's the reason that we're here and why students are coming to UNC. Now, I can tell you too, over the years, these are the kinds of results that I've been able to see. And I would say from a general perspective, usually that first term GPA, about a 0.5 difference for students. Talk a little bit about some of that registration process again, and also to, one of the nice things that y'all are participating now, and if your student has been doing new student orientation now, this is a great time. There's more options, more seats available, because I do have just a limited number of seats. And so the sooner that you could encourage your student to enroll and select a section is helpful. I will tell you too that if your student, for some reason, maybe a section is full and they can't get into it, they can reach out to me directly. I'm very responsive and I will help them problem solve, and I will make sure that they get what they need and get into a class. And so I don't want a student to get that message, sorry, it's full, and think that there's not options. And so I'm more likely to raise a cap to accommodate a couple more students than to say, no, sorry, you can't do this. So please reach out to me. This information is on our website. And so it does show the different sections that are available. Yeah, and notice that it does have some where it says NHS majors, like our SCS, nursing. We do have our psychology, our business, seeking business. If you have a business student and let's say those times don't fit in their schedule, they can go to any of these where it says all students and majors. And because those programs highly recommend it, there'll be business students in every section, and there'll be nursing students in every section. And so they're gonna still be able to meet with those peers as well as others. So ultimately, though, if they can fit into those schedules for their major, I think that is helpful. And again, to meet people directly into their major. Do we have any questions now? Have any of that? No? Okay. And so then we do have a required textbook. I'd like to talk about textbooks generally that I think is helpful. Again, as a parent who put a child through college, textbooks can be expensive. And sometimes textbooks can also be frustrating when I would pay $200 for a textbook and, you know, my child told me they read a chapter. And I was like, okay. What I can tell you about our textbook is that we use every page. It is my curriculum. I wrote the textbook, so it aligns very well and we use every single page. And then we do provide another supplement for the students in the first week. What I would tell you right now, as soon as your students are registered and enrolled, you can go to the bookstore and find out what's required. I would start working on that now because there's more options to get used books, to go out to Amazon, to go to other sources, to get better prices, and there's going to be better availability. There's rentals, there's ebooks, there's all sorts of options for students. And so it is better now, the sooner the better to get those. I also share with students that sometimes our bookstore isn't great about having things available or having it available quickly. And so to me, I think it's important to try to get those things nailed down as soon as possible. A lot of classes and professors will have readings that first week. And so definitely the more you can do, and it will also help to save you some money. There are sometimes options too for students that they can check. I know for our program, University 101, I have like 20 copies in the library and they can go to the front desk and they can check out the book for 4 hours, take their notes, do those kinds of things, and then give it back. And so if that's an option that needs to work for you and your student, that's there. And some other professors will do that too. So definitely look into those kinds of things to help support you. And here's some of my contact information. My name, a lot of times last name, people do not spell it correctly, so I will point that out. And then you can go in also and look at our website and look at some additional information. But I'll open it up for questions now, if we have additional questions.
It's like we have one in chat. It says, my student and her dorm mate have many of the same classes. Do you think they could possibly share some of the textbooks? And then is there any way to know in advance if they will need their own copy of a particular book?
So that's a great question. So a couple things, and I'm talking not only from the perspective of University 101, but even the other classes that I teach, right? And so in the other classes that I teach, I tell students to bring their textbook in class because we're going to use it in class. And so in those instances, sometimes it's easier if students have their own copy. But a lot of classes, though, you're not bringing your textbook to class. As long as you have it, you can read it, you can take the notes that you need on it, then absolutely sharing textbooks can be a smart way to go and can be very helpful. I would say University 101 too. A lot of times we're asking students to bring in their textbooks so that they can use it. And so in that case, sometimes it's better to have your own copy. Or I tell students, if that's not the case, make sure you're taking really good notes before you come into class. So that can be helpful as well. But a lot of the classes, again, if it's lecture-based and they're just taking notes, I would say as long as they have access to it, it's a smart way to go. Cedric, do you concur on that, being a recent student?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't even think I could add anything.
Okay.
Our next question says, I went on can't speak today. Excuse me, folks. We just had a first year session this morning. So I just went on Amazon and don't see it. Can you post the cover again? I think they may be referring to your textbook.
Yeah. And it is the second edition. I also, if you go to my website, there is a page, I believe it's on the registration page. There is an online link directly to the publisher. But certainly if there's used copies out there, that's an option too. If no more used copies are available, you can go directly and order it from the publisher. And I did put that link on the webpage as well. Any other questions?
It looks like someone provided the Amazon link in the chat as well.
Nice, nice. So we do have a couple more minutes, and certainly if you have other questions, throw them up there. I did want to offer another suggestion to encourage your student, and we also do as part of not only our partnerships and things that we do, but tutoring center, our writing center, math lab. These are all resources that are available to your student, and we encourage them and talk to them about making these parts of their routine and using these resources. They are free to the student, although it's not free, right? They're paying a good amount of money for their education. So these are all resources. We also partner with our counseling and our psychological services clinics and offer opportunities for groups and individual support for students. And again, these things are opportunities that are free of cost and can get some additional support for students. And so we really, as a program, really try to connect students to the different resources that are on campus. They're going to help them not only just this semester, but going forward.
I was muted and trying to ask a question. It was not working out. In the chat, we have, if students come in with families, Kaiser insurance, can they still access counseling session, or do you have to have college insurance through UNC? You do not need to have insurance through UNC to access our counseling center. You do have to have insurance, and if you do not, the university will enroll you on their plan, but you do not have to be on the university's insurance to access the counseling center as a student.
And there are two different counseling services, our psychological services clinic and then our counseling center. And so they have different, they support different needs and different students and have different requirements there. But the psychological services definitely is free to students to use. Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
In Amazon, within the used book section, it does state that, quote, used books may not include access code or one-time use codes. Is that something that is necessary for this book, for your book?
No, and in fact, I don't have an online component tied to the book. And so as long as they get the book, they're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
As a general piece of advice, especially with some of our science classes, if you notice that there are online codes for a textbook, it can be useful to have your student reach out to the professor and ask if they do need those online codes. I've purchased an online code like 2 weeks before classes and then showed up the first day and the professor tells us not to do it, and they don't allow refunds because it's an online code kind of thing. And so every time I've emailed a professor and asked, they've been honest and doesn't seem like they've minded if students ask that. And so I recommend it just have your students email and ask, because it can't hurt.
And some professors, and this is what I do, even in my other class that I teach, I put it in the notes in the bookstore for the adoption that used copies are fine. They do not need the online code. So you can look for that information there first. And if it's not there, then yeah, definitely reach out to the professor and find out.
But just to be clear, for this course, the University 101, used books.
No, there's no online component. So they just need.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Looks Looks like we have another one in chat. Their student already had an advising session and signed up for a class as 15 hours as a special education major. She was excellent at self-advocacy in high school, but that was all at the high school level. Would it behoove her to change her schedule to take University 101 and move a class to a second semester or summer?
Okay, so for two reasons. I think the first one, again, freshman student getting that support, building those networks, everything we've talked about today, absolutely. But the other piece, she's going to be a teacher. Like I said, I've been a teacher for 20 plus years. This is ed psych. It is the foundation for what they do. And what I tell future teachers, in this class, you learn what this means for you. What does it mean for me to process information deeply? What does it mean for me to learn most effectively? And then as they go further on into their classes, they start to learn then as a teacher, how do I help others do that? And so I am constantly, whether it's this program and my other class that I teach, they completely align in terms of the theories and the foundations that underlie it. And so, yeah, for that reason too, I mean, it's more prep for what she's going to do for herself as a teacher.
If I can also just add in a bit, if your student's looking to be a teacher and they maybe take this class and love it and apply to be a class leader, I imagine that experience looks really amazing on a resume.
Yes, thank you, Cedric. And in fact, we have quite a few of our class leaders. That's exactly what they are. They're going to be teachers, and it gives them that first experience to lead discussions, plan a lesson, do all sorts of things. So yeah, great point. Thank you. Any other last questions? Okay.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Okay.
So as a reminder, folks, this session was recorded and we will have that on our website as soon as Zoom can give us a bit of a delay in the processing on the back end, unfortunately. But I would like to thank Dr. Vaughn for coming in today and presenting about University 101. Like I said at the beginning, I believe this is such an important class, especially for so many of our students. And I think that's even more true as we sort of return to normal from COVID school and for students who may be attending in-person classes for the first time in a long time. This can be such a huge class and support system for them.
And if y'all have any other questions, please reach out. I'll take a couple of trips with my kiddos this summer, but otherwise I'm around and I will be very responsive and I'll be happy to help you out.
Well, thank you all so much for coming in today. Again, this will be posted on our website, and have a great rest of your day. Looks like we may have a quick question. Lisa, you can unmute and ask or put it in the chat.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I was just curious. You said it was competitive to teach your class. I can see why. But are they teachers from all the departments? Is it a mishmash of who the professors are for your class?
No, and so they are all doctoral students in specific disciplines. So whether it's a counselor ed or psychology, ed psych as well. I've had special education doctoral students who have taught, and then so it has to be a specific discipline where they have this foundation in the content.
So it's part of their PhD program. It's a PhD program thingy, whatever.
Yeah,
for lack of a better word.
Well, it definitely gives them lots of training. So they do 50 hours in the summer, and then they get another 2 hours every week during the fall semester. And so they get lots of training, not only around the content, but pedagogy and supporting students and things like that. But yeah, it helps them also prepare to be effective faculty in the future as well.
Got it. Thanks. It sounds awesome. Too bad it's not required for everyone. I'm going to have to convince my child to add it.
Great. Thank you.